Hi everyone, welcome back to the Pro MMA Betting Podcast, penultimate one of this year. We've got UFC 245 coming up this weekend, then we've got the show over in Korea the following week, and then that's going to wrap up the UFC for this year. There is a Bettors at the end of the year actually. Don't know if I'll put a podcast out for that, but might have some bets for it. It's a card that's actually quite appealing on the betting side to me. But back to UFC 245, it's an absolutely stacked card, a great way to almost end the UFC calendar year. First, we're just going to quickly recap how we got on weekend just gone, first UFC in 3 weeks. So there was the boxing as well Saturday night before the UFC. So in terms of members' bets, we had half a unit on Anthony Joshua to win by decision, which cashed at plus 400 or 4-1. So 2 units profit there. We had 1 unit on Yudong Song. There was a push, ended up being a draw. I haven't rewatched the fight, but at the time of watching it, I didn't expect to get the draw, to be honest. I thought that I didn't see 2 judges giving Song round 1 and round 2, but round 1 and 2 were both really close rounds. I see there's a lot of people crying robbery on Twitter, etc. I'd need to rewatch round 1 and 2, but they were both really close rounds. I don't think it was a robbery. I think people's memories being affected by round 3, where Cody did dominate. But this isn't pride scoring; it's on a round-by-round basis. So I don't think it was a robbery. But yeah, we got a push there. It's a little bit fortunate, perhaps, but no loss. So I'm more than happy with it being a draw. I said at the end of the fight, I'll take a draw here. So push there, so no money lost. And that was our only bet on the UFC, and we also across the night took home just over 1 unit's profit on live betting. So overall about 3 units profit for the weekend. As I always say, I am happy with any profit. It's better than a loss. It pushes £100 per unit members up to £13,800 profit for 2019. We've probably got 3 shows left that we're going to be betting on, the 2 UFCs and Bellator, so I'm really hoping we can get as close to 15,000 as possible for £100 per unit bettors. Guys, you can go on the website prommmabetting.com. Packages are on there. You can sign up for weekly, monthly, 6 monthly or annually. I'd say, well in fact not say, fact, over 90% of our members are on the yearly. It's only £195 for the year at the moment, guys. As I said, members that bet £100 per unit are £13,800 in profit. Take away the £200 or £195 investment you have to make in us for 12 months. You're still £13,600 in profit. It's very minimal amount we ask for. You get pre-bets for every UFC show. You get this podcast for the UFC for every show. You get live betting for every UFC, and you get pre-bets on boxing and live betting for boxing. This weekend coming, guys, there's 3 live betting events. There's boxing Friday night, there's boxing Saturday night, and then the UFC follows the boxing immediately afterwards. So you're getting 3 shows worth of live betting. We're definitely going to have some pre-bets on the UFC. There might be pre-bet on the boxing as well. You get an insane bang for your buck, guys. Great return on investment. We're going into the new year, so anyone that's looking to sign up, why not make that a New Year's resolution? Make a wise investment, somewhere that's going to make you money. I know here in the UK, you put your money in a savings account, you're getting about 1.5% return on your money. It's an absolute joke. I'd rather put my money into investing in sports betting, and when I say sports betting, I only bet on boxing and MMA. Very disciplined. It's how I've made a lot of money over the years, and I won't be changing that up at all. They're the only 2 sports I will ever provide tips on. So as I say, guys, very, very cheap for the return on investment you're going to get. We're going to look at the UFC 245 card now. If you do want to give us a follow on Twitter, it's at prommmabetting. One other thing as well, we will always post our bet slips and stakes on Twitter. I like to prove that we are betting what we are tipping, and I like to show the amount of money we're risking as well, so you can see that we're putting our balls on the line with every bet that we are tipping. There's a lot of people out there that are paper trading, they're not putting their bet slips up. If they are putting their bet slips up, they're covering the stakes. They're asking people for money for betting tips, and they're betting peanuts, or some of them aren't even betting what they're tipping. Disgraceful. I pride myself on transparency. I've said it, I say it every podcast, no one will ever call me out for lack of transparency. If it ever does happen, there will be some underlying reason and the situation will get resolved. Transparency is key. It's what this business relies on, transparency. There's a lot of sharks out there, a lot of dodgy people. I see it every day on Twitter, all these tipsters, just not transparent at all. We are 100% transparent. Believe me, when we're betting on something, or when we're tipping something, we are betting on it. As I said, bet slips and stakes are posted on Twitter as proof, and all of our bets are third-party tracked, guys. The live bets are third-party tracked, the pre-bets are third-party tracked, the boxing bets are tracked. All trackers are available on the website, and there's direct links to all 3 trackers below this video as well, so you can see. Transparency, 100%. So Twitter at Pro MMA Betting. The website for the packages is prommabetting.com, and please hit the like button on this YouTube video. But now we're going to dive into the card. We're going to start, as we always do, from the bottom, work our way up. I'm going to try and fly through some of the preliminary card, because I do want to talk in a bit more depth about some of the main card fights, especially the Colby Usman fight. First fight of the card, guys, is in the middleweight division. We've got Oscar Piechota taking on Punahele Soriano. I don't have a strong opinion on this fight. It's a tough one to call. Oscar is a very solid grappler. He's got power in his hands. Does tend to slow down, it seems, though. The longer a fight goes, we saw him slow down against Gerald Meerschaert. He came out really strong. He did go the distance and win a decision with Jonathan Wilson, but there was some big periods of inactivity in that fight, and he's coming off a loss to Rodolfo Vieira, but that was a very tough stylistic fight for him. So he's got power, he's a very good grappler. Cardio, bit of a concern, and his stand-up isn't great. He's got power, and he is serviceable on the feet, but he's not the greatest striker in the world, and he can be hit. Soriano is a very much an unknown quantity. He's only had 6 professional fights. First time he's been out of round 1 was his last fight on the Contender Series against Jamie Pickett. I mean, I don't know a great deal about Jamie Pickett, but he doesn't seem like, you know, a particularly great fighter. He fought on the Contender Series previously and lost in round 1. So this isn't a fight I'll be risking any money on. I'm gonna pick Oscar just purely based on experience, and he's very competent on the mat, and he does have power standing. Soriano obviously has power standing as well. It's a very hard fight to call. No confidence whatsoever. I don't think it's one you should be risking any money on, unless you're a complete Deegan and you like betting on every fight, and if you do, just keep it really small. I don't see how anyone can have any confidence either way on this fight. It is a pick'em as well, and I think that line's right. I can't really separate them. I've got no strong lean here, so I'll pick Oscar just based on experience and having fought on the big show numerous occasions, and perhaps he learned from that Gerald Meerschaert fight as well, because that is definitely a feeling he won't want to have again in the octagon. Being tired and being beaten up, there can't be anything worse. So I think he'll need to make some necessary adjustments, and we'll see what happens here. But it's definitely a more favourable matchup than he had against Vieira, so I'll go with Oscar, but as I say, don't bet it, guys. Next, we've got a women's flyweight fight. We've got Jessica Eye taking on Viviane Araújo. I really like Viviane. I bet her in a UFC debut where she took the fight with Talita Bernardo at 135 on short notice. It wasn't a big bet. I think I put about 500 on her, half a unit. She was about 2-1 or something. I got maybe a little bit better, which was crazy. She's very explosive. She uses a lot of movement on the feet, a lot of footwork. She darts in and out. When she's used them, she seems to have solid takedowns. When she's hit takedowns, she's tended to kind of stand back up and not utilise her ground game, but she is very good on the mat. I think it was Bernardo's back she took towards the end of round 1 or round 2. But yeah, she's a very good top position grappler. She's got very good takedown defense from what we've seen as well. Seems very efficient with her takedown defense. Just all round very solid athlete. The worry with Viviane is, as I said, she does use a lot of exaggerated movement on the feet, and she does slow down. She kind of seems to recharge pretty well, but she will go through periods of rounds where she will need to take some time off just to recharge. And she isn't great when she is pushed back defensively. She is there to be hit. Now, she's got 2 wins in the UFC, Talita Bernardo and Alexis Davis. Alexis is a step up from Bernardo, but what I would note about both of them opponents is they are both pretty unathletic, slow, plodding type fighters. She's going to be fighting Jessica Eye, who is probably the best striker she's ever faced. Viviane does have that loss to Sarah Frota, who I wouldn't say she's as good as Jessica Eye in a technical aspect, but she's a bit more of a savage kind of with her. She'll throw power shots, and I did see that fight before, and she managed to just crowd Viviane. And like I said, Viviane isn't great defensively when she's pushed back. So Jessica Eye here isn't a plodder like Davis or Bernardo. She's pretty fast on the feet. She's got nice stand up. She's coming back from a bad knockout loss though to Valentina Shevchenko. So whether that's going to create any hesitancy, I don't know. But before that, she was coming off a win over Ketlen Chikagan, close fight, but Ketlen's kind of improved now. So that does look like a solid enough victory now in retrospect. Before that, she beat Jessica Rose Clark. Kind of lent on her grappling chops there. Took Jessica down a couple of times, had a fair bit of top control in that fight. And then she had the split decision win before that over Kalindra Farrier, where she got dropped with a head kick actually in round 1, but managed to fight through. So, I mean, everything kind of points to Viviane here, but as a bettor, I don't like betting on people when I'm concerned about their gas tank. It's a little bit different with women's MMA, because even if Viviane gasses, I don't see Jessica Eye stopping her. I mean, you look at Eye's record as well. She's got 3 KO wins, 1 submission win, 10 decisions. The 3 KO wins are over. I think one was Leslie Smith, which was when Leslie's ear was hanging off, so it's not even really a proper TKO win. And her other ones are going back to literally her first and third fight. So, she's not a finisher. So yes, there are concerns about Viviane's gas tank, which does make me very hesitant as a bettor, because it's kind of one of the commandments I go by. I can't bet someone if I'm worried about their gas tank. But women's MMA is slightly different in the sense that I don't think Jessica Eye is going to finish if she gasses. So you're still relying on Jessica to win a decision here, and she's probably going to drop round 1 when Viviane's at her most explosive. But you're going to need Jessica probably to nick round 2. Just say in theory she wins round 3. Round 2 could be the swing round here. Now, I am picking Viviane, but I think I'd need the line to be a little bit better for me to risk money on her. She's minus 170. Now, she could make this look easy. Viviane does hit hard for a woman as well. That's another thing that I need to point out here. Before her UFC debut, she stopped both girls with strikes, and both were stopped due to, I think both had smashed orbital bones. So she's definitely got power. We saw a one punch to Lito Bernardo, and she made Alexis Davis's face look like it had been through a meat grinder. Now I know that happens with all of Alexis's fights. She marks up incredibly easily, but her face was swollen and just it looked an absolute mess. So Viviane does have power for a lady. That is 100%. You don't really see that kind of power in this weight class normally. And I do imagine she's just going to be landing the more eye-catching shots because they're going to look more powerful than what Eye lands. And even if Viviane does start to coast at points, I still think she's just going to do enough work to have sway with the judges. So I am going to pick Viviane here with the caveat that look out for her gas tank, look for when she starts to take time off, and when she is Jessica doing enough to steal rounds. I don't know if she's going to be able to. So I'm going to go with Vivian here to keep marching forward, and I am intrigued as well just to see if Jessica is hesitant at all, because she is facing someone that punches hard here. Normally in women's MMA I'd say she's probably not going to be hesitant. She got caught by a head kick. Women's MMA, they don't tend to hit hard, but as I said, Vivian does crack, and she cracks her hard early a couple of times. It might start giving Jessica Rai some flashbacks to that Shevchenko fight. So I'm going to go Vivian here, probably to win a decision. But there could be some moments where you're a little bit nervy if you're a Vivian backer, but I'm intrigued to see where the line goes, see if it comes in a little bit. Minus 170 feels a little bit steep to me, even though I'm leaning her. Vivian wins inside the distance, plus 300. Vivian by decision, plus 125. Jessica Eye, has she ever been finished besides the Shevchenko fight? She's got a submission loss, but I don't know when that was. A long time ago. Yeah, like a full fight against the Irish girl Aislinn Daly. So, it's likely to see the cards. So I'll go with Vivian here, probably by decision. Next, we've got Brandon Moreno taking on Kai Kara France in the men's 125-pound division. So we saw Moreno return for his second stint in the UFC back in September against Askarov. Felt he was a little bit unlucky not to get that decision. I remember we had a good live bet on Brandon Moreno. We got him at dog odds, and I was very confident we was going to get the decision, but the draw came through in the end. Brandon Moreno is someone that he's got very good grappling. He's very opportunistic. We saw him choke out Louis Smolka in the UFC. He had Sergio Pettis in some trouble in their fight in round 1, had his back, but just couldn't put it together. He was coming off the Ultimate Fighter. Still a little bit raw. He didn't have the easiest run either. His last 3 fights were Sergio Pettis, Dustin Ortiz and Pantoja. He did beat Ortiz. Maybe it was a little bit fluky. He was getting control up until he landed. I think it was a head kick he caught Dustin with, and then he managed to choke him out. So he fought Pantoja in May 2018. He took over a year off, went to LFA, won a fight in the 4th round there against Mikel Perez, a wrestler. Got a finish in the 4th round, and then he came back to the UFC in September against a much hyped Russian and put in a solid performance. What's always let Brandon down though is his striking. He's quite wild on the feet. He's very hittable. He's not great off the back foot either, but like I said, he kind of got exploited against Sergio and Pantoja. But Sergio's a very good striker, and Pantoja is a solid fighter. So perhaps he needs a bit more seasoning. I thought perhaps he would have had more fights away from the UFC, but he only had the one. But he did have over a year out, so I'm assuming he spent a lot of time training and developing his game. But he is back already. Kai Kara France, this is his 4th fight in the UFC now. He's had a fairly gentle introduction to the UFC, shall we say. He's fought Elias Garcia, Julian Paiva and Mark De La Rosa. Now Paiva I actually do rate, and I bet Kara France against Paiva, and I still feel I was quite fortunate to get that decision. Elias Garcia was a comfortable win. I bet him in that fight as well actually, and there was a couple of points, especially when he got caught in, I think it was the triangle or armbar, where I was absolutely shitting it, but he managed to fight through, and on the whole, he was unlucky not to get Garcia out of there. He did put a beating on him. And then the Mark De La Rosa fight, yeah, it was I wasn't overly impressed, I've got to say. This fight's an intriguing one for me because Brandon Moreno struggles when he's pressured on the feet, doesn't like being pressured, but it's not really Kai Kara France's game. He's more of a counter striker. He's got a good overhand right. Kai, he's pretty accurate with it, and he's got some power with it. He's got a decent left hook as well. His takedown defence seems solid, and so does his scrambling. But like I said, Garcia had him in some awkward spots, and he hasn't. Mark De La Rosa is a very strong grappler, but he's not the best takedown artist. Brandon Moreno is good at catching kicks and hitting takedowns. Now Kai doesn't throw loads of kicks, but he will throw some out there. So I think he'd maybe be well advised here to really cut them down, because he doesn't want to end up with Brandon Moreno on his back. And Marino's takedowns outside of catching kicks aren't great. He did hit a nice takedown, a nice trip from the body lock on Askarov, but that was Askarov initiating the clinch there because he was looking for the takedown. So we have seen Kai try and hit takedowns in the UFC. He done it to Piper, but that's because he was starting to struggle a little bit on the feet, so he tried mixing things up. I don't foresee him shooting here on Marino, but I do think this is a close fight. I went into tape hoping to like France here for a bet, but I don't. I'm not 100% sold on him. I think Marino, as I said, his weakness is being pushed back. I don't see him being pushed back, not to the degree where I'd be comfortable betting him. I can see Marino pushing forward. Kai is hittable. He's got good accuracy with his strikes, and as I said, Marino is hittable and he does kind of mark up pretty well. He's shown a solid chin, Marino, but he did get rocked a couple of times against, not Sergio, against Pantoja. Pantoja seemed to hurt him a couple of times. Kai Kara does have a couple of knockout losses on his record, but we are going back a few years. His striking's obviously come on a lot since then. So, but we did see him get dropped by Elias Garcia. I don't think he was hurt, just put him on his ass, but still, the jury's still out on Kai Kara France for me. I'm just not comfortable betting him as a favourite here. I think Marino's live. He is scrappy, Marino. It's hard to kind of pin down exactly how he can win, but I think he can make it scrappy on the feet. And if he can get this fight to the floor, he's very good at scrambling. And he showed that against Askarov, the much touted Russian. So for me, it's a tough fight to call, but as I always say, I pick based on where I think the value is, not necessarily who I think will win. And Randamie Marino sitting at plus 135. If I had to bet this fight, I would take the dog money on Marino, and I say that quite surprised because I thought going into tape, and especially when I watched Marino's fights, because I taped him before I taped Kai Kara France, I was definitely seeing myself having some money on Kai Kara France, but styles make fights, and once I refreshed on Kai Kara France, I think this could be a tough fight for him. It's not a confident pick, but at plus 135, I think if you're going to risk money on this fight, that's where I would go. I would risk the money on Marino, and he will fight for your money as well. He's a tough kid. Last fight on the Fight Pass prelims is Chase Hooper taking on Daniel Teymur. I haven't bet this. I haven't done tape on this fight, guys. It's at a pick'em. It's a low-level fight. I do not hold Daniel Teymur in high regard. I don't hold Chase Hooper in high regard. It's not the kind of fight I'm going to risk money on. Some people I respect who have taped it. Some people are on Teymur, some are on Hooper, and that was just enough for me to know that I don't need to tape this fight. It's low level. Both got big holes in their game. Complete pass for me, and I'm not even making a prediction on it. We're just going to move on to the Fox part of the card, guys. Next, we move to the men's welterweight division. We've got Matt Brown taking on Ben Saunders. So Matt Brown fighting for the first time in a couple of years. Ben Saunders, I don't know why he is still fighting. He should have retired. His chin is absolutely shot to pieces. He's been knocked out 8 times in his career now, Saunders. He's coming off 2 straight KO losses. Sergio Morales submitted him. He got the TKO win over Jake Ellenberger, and in the 2 fights before that he got KO'd as well. I don't know why the UFC are giving him fights. They should just tell him enough's enough. Matt Brown, I thought he had retired. I know he's had some concussion issues and so forth, but I mean, this is a real favourable matchup for him. He had a favourable matchup last time against Thiago Sanchez, and he's got another one here. He does have a dodgy liver. It makes me hesitant to pay the juice on Matt Brown. Saunders is a southpaw. Liver kick will be there, and Saunders does have pretty good kicks, so I'm not going to be playing. I think he's minus 350. I think I'll be passing on that. The fight is going to end inside the distance, but it's up at minus 425, unfortunately. So I'll pick Matt Brown just because Saunders' chin is shot to pieces. I'm interested to see what the under will be. It's going to be 1.5, but could be worth the risk here. I hate betting unders, especially 1.5s, but for this particular fight it might be worth risking. Nothing majorly big, but I definitely think there's some mileage in looking at that if we get, you know, a kind of even money minus 120 price on it, because Saunders' durability is just it isn't there at all. And Matt Brown, he's got a dodgy liver, so if you can't put him away, I would not be shocked to see him get folded in half from a Ben Saunders kick or knee. So I'll pick Matt Brown, but yeah, don't be laying money on that fight, guys. Not big money anyway. But Ben Saunders, by God, I hope he doesn't get put out cold, because he's had a brutal end to his career. Next up, we've got a fight in the men's middleweight division. We've got Ian Heinisch taking on Omari Akhmedov. So this will be Ian's fourth fight in the UFC. We saw his first two fights against Cesar Ferreira and Antonio Carlos Jr., two very good grapplers, that he basically outworked them and out-scrambled them. Showed really good cardio, just outlasted both of them basically, and took the decisions home. He then faced Derek Brunson, where he couldn't get that scrambling going. Derek wasn't interested in taking the fight to the floor, he wanted to keep it standing. Ian couldn't get Derek down. Derek's a very good wrestler, so he couldn't initiate that kind of scramble heavy type fight that he did with Carlos Jr. and Cesar Ferreira. And it was actually Ian that ended up slowing down in that fight. He won round one and then slowed down, and he lost the last two rounds. So I think I need to kind of put the brakes on overrating Ian's cardio. The other thing to note as well is Carlos Jr. and Cesar Ferreira, there's question marks over their cardio, so maybe out scrambling and outlasting them and kind of out cardioing them isn't as big a deal as maybe I initially thought, because he definitely did slow against Brunson. Omari Akhmedov's moved up from welterweight. He's actually looked okay up at middleweight. Probably looks more comfortable there. I mean, you look at his frame now and it's like, how the hell did he make welterweight in the first place? Since moving up, he's had to draw with Marvin Vettori. Won the first two rounds, but he slowed down and he got dominated in the third round. And then he's got wins over Tim Boach and Zach Cummins, which were kind of pedestrian type fights. There wasn't really a strong pace put on him there. So Omari does have, there has been cardio issues in the past with Omari, so what I see happening here, I think the wrestling's going to cancel each other out. I don't think Ian's going to be able to get Omari down. I don't think Omari's going to get Ian down. And if he does, I think Ian will get back to his feet pretty quickly. I think we're probably going to see a kickboxing match here, and it's quite a difficult one to call, because if Omari can keep it at a decent pace, I fancy him to win. It's whether Ian can really push the pace here, but I just don't think he can get Omari down. I don't think he can create them scrambles. I think the only way that happens is if Omari decides to wrestle, but I don't think he will. I think we're going to see a stand-up fight here. I think it's a hard one to call. I think they're both pretty similar, but I'm not particularly fond of Ian's striking. It's not great. You kind of try and fight in spurts. There's just not really any balance to his stand-up game. Omari's going to come out, he's going to throw heavy shots. I just think with the way the line is, Omari is plus 130 favourite. I think I'd lean his way based on the current line. I'm not confident. I definitely can see this going either way, but I'd probably have it priced more as a pick'em. So I think there is a little bit of value on Omari there. But like I said, it's a very close fight. They're both evenly matched. I wouldn't go big on Omari, but yeah, I just can't get behind Ian after that last performance against Brunson. And as I said, I don't see him being able to create the scrambles here, because I just don't think Omari's going to try and take him down. I think he's going to be content to stand and try and fight at a measured pace. And if it is kept on the feet, he might be able to implement that game plan. So I'll go with Omari to win probably like a split decision type fight here. Next, we've got a women's bantamweight bout. We've got the returning Ketlen Vieira taking on Irene Aldana. Not much in the stats here in terms of reach. They've both got the same reach. They're both a similar height. Irene Aldana, very high volume, over 6 significant strikes landed per minute. Ketlen Vieira, pretty successful with her takedown accuracy, 57%. Averages just over 2 takedowns per 15 minutes, but Irene Aldana takedown defence is up at 93%, but kind of when you look at opposition and so forth, it maybe doesn't mean as much as it possibly could, being 93%. But if we look at Ketlen, she's unbeaten. She trains out of Nova and Neal. Made a UFC debut now back in October 2016 in a I think it was short notice, but it wasn't a great performance, but looked far better in performances since. She beat Ashley Evans-Smith up for 3 rounds. Just basically walked Ashley down and dominated her for the whole fight. Then she fought Sarah McMahon, lost round 1, got taken down. Round 2, hit her own takedown, finished Sarah McMahon. And then her last fight was a split decision win. Quite controversial that it was a split against Kat Zingano. I actually I rewatched all of Ketlen's fights for capping purposes here, and the Kat Zingano fight was more competitive than my memory led me to believe. I thought it was a dominant victory, but wasn't as dominant as I expected. Kat hasn't got good striking, but she's quite awkward. She throws stuff quite unorthodox, and she was actually nailing Ketlen, and Ketlen slowed down in that fight as well. So I did see some things that made me question whether I'd want to bet Ketlen here. I mean, after watching the Ashley Evans-Smith fight, I thought this was definitely looking like a bet, because her striking looked good, and then she's got the grappling in her back pocket. But looking good striking against Ashley Evans-Smith, it doesn't really mean anything. When we, in retrospect, Sarah McMahon, we didn't see much stand up, and Kat Zingano, there was a fair bit of striking in that fight. We saw Kat really going for it on the feet, and I mean, Ketlen was landing some shots back herself, but I just wasn't that overly impressed with that performance. She moves forward, Ketlen, she's aggressive, but I didn't like how she slowed down, and she is hittable, and she was struggling a bit with Kat. So Irene Aldana probably has the striking advantage here, especially with her volume, but Irene is not good on the back foot, which I think Ketlen is probably going to force her to be on. And there is a grappling advantage for Ketlen if she can get the fight to the floor. She showed some good entries against Ashley Evans-Smith. I don't think she actually managed to get her down, but Ashley's got very heavy hips and does have a decent wrestling background. Sarah McMahon she took down, who is an Olympian, a medalist at the Olympics. And then Kat Zingano, she managed to take down a few times as well, hit a really nice hip throw when Kat closed the distance and hit a body lock. So she has got takedowns in her back pocket, but she's been out as well for, I mean, in March it's 2 years, so we're talking like 21 months. She's had some knee injuries, so it's always dodgy betting someone with knee injuries, and she's a -170 favourite. She's coming back from a 21-month layoff. She showed some cardio issues in that Zingano fight, and she's coming back from knee surgery, a long-term lingering knee injury. I just can't pull the trigger. I need to see her back in there. I need to see how she looks. I don't like playing doctor. I normally like to assume someone looks the same, but when you couple that injury with a long-term layoff and the gas tank issues, I just need to see her back in there. Irene Aldana, she's definitely someone that flatters to deceive. She looked good in her last fight against Mello, but Mello was tailor-made for her. Before that, she lost to Raquel Pennington. She's just one of these people that makes fights closer than perhaps you think they should be, because she has got really good stand-up, but she just never goes out there and puts an exclamation mark on her performance, besides the last opponent. But as I said, the Mello was just overmatched. You go back and watch the Padilova, Betch Correa, and then the Pennington fight. I mean, they're all close. The Caitlin Chikagan fight's really close. and she obviously had a terrible UFC debut against Leslie Smith. So, I mean, if Ketlen comes out, puts her on the back foot, she might eat a few shots from Aldana, but she can land her own shots on Aldana, because Aldana isn't great defensively. And then if she can get her grappling going as well, I mean, I do lean Ketlen here, but I just can't bet her with them question marks. They, especially with the long layoff and the injury, and as I said, she was looking up at the clock a lot in round 3 against Kat. Just kind of go against some of the commandments I stick by in terms of betting. So I'm going to pick Ketlen, but I can't risk money on this particular fight, so it's a pass for me. Anyone stabbing Aldana, I don't think it's the worst bet in the world. But if you get an informed Ketlen that's kind of back to her best, I can see it being a difficult fight for Aldana. Right, last fight before we hit the main card, we've got Geoff Neal taking on Mike Perry. I personally think this is a tough fight for Mike Perry now. He has improved. He thinks more about what he's doing in there now. We saw that in the Luque fight. There was more of a method behind his madness. It wasn't just going in there to try and brawl. He actually fought fairly technical in that fight, and he gave Luque a very, very close fight. I mean, could have gone either way. So the guy is improving, but I think he's going to come up short here because of Geoff Neal's speed and accuracy. I mean, the guy's possibly got the fastest hands in the welterweight division. That left hand is just like a piston, extremely accurate. He's looked great in the UFC. What we haven't seen from Geoff is him really kind of have to deal with pressure and a pace, which is something Perry will bring to the table. We did see Geoff wilt basically against Kevin Holland, but it was 4 years ago. He wasn't training full time. I think he took the fight short notice. I remember reading something where there was I don't think he was even thinking about continuing with his career. He just took the fight. So I don't want to read too much into that, but I do have that in the back of my mind, because we haven't seen him have to perform under pressure in the UFC. We haven't really seen him have to weather too much adversity. He had a difficult fight last time against Nico Price, who's just a tough guy to look good against. Did get backed up with some crazy barrages by Price, and who actually had him shooting for the takedown. So that wasn't the best look, but Mike Perry, as I said, he did fight more technical last time, but I don't know if that's the best strategy for him here against Geoff Neal. He tries to fight that similar kind of fight. I think he's just going to get picked off. We've seen Mike Perry, when he's fought technical, guys that have fought him technically, he has struggled. I mean, Alan Germaine, I know it was a long time ago, but just got picked apart for 3 rounds. Max Griffin picked him apart for 2 rounds. He started to get to Griffin in round 3. He kind of does better when he gets the guys that are going to stand in front of him and kind of trade with him, like your Ponzinibbio's, like your Luques. They're the kind of fights where he really thrives. But Geoff Neal's coming from very good camp. Fortis, they're going to have him well trained. They're going to have a solid game plan for this fight. It's going to be to use his speed, movement and accuracy. I think if Perry has success, it's going to have to be from managing to get to him in the second half of the fight, pressuring him, maybe getting the late knockout or stealing a close decision. But for me, from that southpaw stance, I just think that left hand's going to be finding a home. He's not fought a southpaw Perry either since Germaine, who he struggled a lot with. And like I said, Perry has improved. He's not the same fighter he was then, but the damage is starting to build up on Perry as well, and he had a nasty nose break in that last fight. Has been put down by Germaine and Max Griffin. You can only take so much punishment for so long before that chin gives in, and it's going to get tested here against Neal. So, I mean, Neal is minus 250. It's maybe a little bit wide, so it's not overly appealing for a bet, to be completely honest. I imagine the fight will be capped at over 2.5. Yeah, it will be. Fight goes to a decision plus 140. Neal by decision plus 230. That's higher than I expected, actually. That is interesting. I definitely thought it was going to be lower than that, so that's a decent line, actually. Neal by decision, but you'll probably find it will be a bit of a sweat, because I do expect him to land quite a lot on Mike Perry. But I mean, Mike's always shown himself to be durable, but like I said, he's been dropped a few times. It takes a lot of punishment. There's only so long that can last. So I'm going to go with Geoff Neal here. I think he's looked spectacular so far. I think Mike Perry is potentially a kind of tailor-made opponent for him to really shine against. Can he put Perry away? I don't know, but I am going with Geoff Neal. But as I said, the price is maybe a little bit on the higher side. I would have preferred that kind of minus 200 or slightly under. But I'm going with Geoff Neal here. Right, opening the main card, we've got Petr Yan, minus 500 favourite, taking on Urijah Faber. I'm very high on Petr Yan. I've bet him quite a lot in his run. I don't see Urijah Faber having much for him here. Yeah, Urijah, it's a great comeback win over Ricky Simon, put him away quickly. But I just think it was quite a fluky shot he caught him with. Caught Simon cold. I don't like saying it was a fluke because he intentionally threw it, but I think, if they fight 100 times, that outcome is probably, it's very few and far between. Yan's, he's just looked so good. He's such a solid striker. He's got good scrambling. Jimmy Rivera actually gave him a close fight. It was the knockdowns that made the difference in that fight, but he's just got that power, Yan. Urijah Faber, I can't see him being able to get this fight to the floor. Look, he's 40 years of age and he's fighting in the men's bantamweight division. That's extremely rare for someone to still be holding it together at that age. The Ricky Simon fight lasted 46 seconds, so it doesn't tell us anything at all about how Uriah's looking. I mean, he's the kind of guy that looks after himself, so he's probably going to look better than most 40-year-old bantamweights would who have had nearly 50 fights. But he's taking on a new young buck here, contender. I think it's a horrible stylistic fight for him. I remember fading Urijah Faber against Jimmy Rivera over 3 years ago, and I just think this is going to be worse for him. I think he could get put away here, Urijah. So I'll go with Yan. Minus 500, obviously not playable, but I think if you're interested in this fight, I think Petr Yan by knockout or inside the distance. Knockout's not out at the moment. Inside the distance, Yan inside the distance, minus 130. Well, I would have liked even money, but look, I don't think that's a bad line. I can definitely see Urijah being put away here. Let's just have a look. How many times has he been knocked out in his career, Urijah? I don't think it's many. 3 times. So yeah, I mean he's a durable guy. Henan Burrell put him away. Mike Brown, yeah, so he's not been put away many times, but yeah, 40 years of age, he's going to be forced to stand here. Yan can crack. I don't think he's going to last the 3 rounds against Yan. I see him getting put away here. But I wouldn't go massive on it because Urijah is durable. I'm just looking at Yan's record, and I mean he's not really been putting people. I mean the Douglas De Silva Andrade was a beatdown. Dodson is extremely durable. He's tough to put away. And I mean Jimmy Rivera, he dropped him numerous times, but Jimmy is a little bit chinny to be fair. So I don't know actually. What's decision pay? Yan decision plus 169. Do you know what? I don't really know if there's any value on either of them lines, unfortunately. But yeah, I don't see Yan losing, and I think the minus 500 price on him is pretty justified. Next, we've got José Aldo taking on Marlon Moraes in the men's bantamweight division, believe it or not. This is a hard fight for me to make an official decision on just yet. I need to see the weigh-ins. I need to see if Aldo makes weight. If he does, how does he look? If he doesn't make weight, does it look like he's crucified himself trying to make it, or is it a case where he's just going to give up when he gets to 140 pounds and therefore doesn't crucify himself? So in terms of an official pick, check back on Friday, guys, after the weigh-ins. I'll make my official pick then. What I am going to say is if Aldo weighs in and he looks okay and fine, it's definitely not a big bet because we don't know how the weight cut is going to affect him in terms of his performance, and he is coming off a poor performance against Volkanovski. Now, I don't want to just dismiss Volkanovski's performance in that fight and put it down to Aldo looking like shit. It's probably a combination of both, to be completely honest. But yeah, Aldo didn't look great in that fight, so that does give me reason to be a little bit hesitant here. But the line currently is José Aldo at plus 170, Marlon Moraes minus 200. If Aldo looks okay at the weigh-in, I don't agree with that line at all. We've kind of had Aldo's number for a while now in terms of him being on the decline, but then he came back and beat Stevens, he beat Moicano, and then like I said, he had that kind of flat looking performance against Volkanovski, but it might just be Volkanovski's that good, a difficult opponent for him. But Aldo is still not an easy fight for anyone. Marlon Moraes, I'm high on Marlon. I've bet him his last few fights. I bet him against Henry Cejudo. I bet him against Rafael Assunção. I'm high on this guy, but he's very fast. He's very explosive. He's definitely going to come out the gate hot. I do think he's a little bit low-key chinny though. I don't completely trust his chin, and I think he does have a little bit of quit in him. He kind of wilted under Cejudo's pressure and kind of just caved in. It's whether Aldo can exploit that. I don't think he can, because I don't think he's not going to bring the type of pressure that Cejudo done. Marlon is going to get the fight here at the kind of pace he likes. It's probably going to be, it is going to be a technical kickboxing match, so I don't think we're going to see Marlon kind of wilt in that sense. It's just going to be if Aldo can get to his chin. Otherwise he might get outworked here by Marlon, but Marlon can be kind of dragged into low volume affairs. We've seen that before. We saw it in the first fight with Assunção. I thought he won that fight, by the way, but it was very close, and we also saw it in the John Dodson fight as well. He can sometimes perhaps not do enough to win these fights, or not enough to put a proper rubber stamp on it. So I think this line's a bit disrespectful if we get a decent Aldo here, because we're going to get a kickboxing match, and like I said, Marlon, we've not really seen his stand-up since the Dodson and Assunção fights, because the first Assunção fight, because he got the quick win over Sterling, he got the quick win over Jimmy Rivera, and then he got the quick win over Assunção in the rematch. I mean, he looked really good against Cejudo early, standing, but he was always going to. He's the way better kickboxer, but Cejudo just absorbed the punishment and wore him down, basically. Kept coming at him. So here we're going to go back to a technical kickboxing match, most likely, which we haven't seen since the Dodson and first Assunção fight. For me, it's a close fight, and plus 170, no, I don't agree, but I need to see the weigh-ins. But as I say, if Aldo looks okay, I'm going to be picking Aldo here. I mean, I think best case, if you're looking to bet Aldo here, is he comes in at maybe £5 over. Whether Marlon agrees to take the fight, I don't know. If I was in his camp, I'd advise him not to take the fight. If the guy can't make the weight, it doesn't look like he's killed himself trying to make the weight, I wouldn't take the fight. So I wouldn't be shocked if this is one of the rare occurrences where someone misses weight by a significant number and the fight doesn't actually go ahead. If Aldo comes in knowing he just misses weight, or he makes it but he looks awful, then I'm probably going to have to just avoid. But if he looks okay, I'm going to be going with Aldo here. I think there's going to be a bit of value at plus 170. I think the line will come down if he looks okay at the weigh-ins, because I think that's a little bit disrespectful. But we'll see. It all hinges on the weigh-ins here. So check back in. I'll put my official pick on Friday once we've seen the weigh-ins. Next, we've got the first of 3 title fights at UFC 245. It's the women's bantamweight title on the line. We've got Amanda Nunes taking on Germaine the Randamie. So this is a rematch from 6 years ago, back in 2013. Amanda got Germaine down pretty quickly, just rained down fire from Mount, and the fight got stopped, basically. Obviously, that's the path of least resistance for Amanda here. I imagine she's going to come out and try and implement the same game plan. We haven't seen Germaine off of her back, really. I don't know if we've seen her off her back since, really. It's been that long. One has to assume that she's improved in that regard. Her takedown defense has gotten better, it seems, but again, it's I mean, she doesn't fight very frequently, and you look who she's fought. She's not really fought anyone that's got a serious kind of takedown threat. But Germaine is very solid on the feet. If this fight stays standing, it's probably going to be a very close fight, and you've always got in the back of your mind Nunes' cardio issues, if they're going to come to bear. But I don't think Germaine's going to make this a kind of high paced enough fight for that to bear fruit for her. So you've got Amanda with a big advantage on the ground. If she can get it there, on the feet it's close. I don't think Amanda's cardio can be exploited, because I don't think Germaine will push a high enough pace. So I have to go with Amanda. Path of least resistance is a takedown. If it's on the feet, then Germaine does have a shot. So it's interesting if you live bet. This is a good fight to live bet, just to see what kind of strategy Nunes comes in with. If she isn't looking for takedowns and she's happy to strike, could be very competitive. You could get a good price on live bet, but I just can't really pre-bet Germaine, even though, you know, she's a plus 200 underdog, just because we just haven't seen her off her back. Has she improved, or is it going to be repeat again? She just gets smashed as soon as it ends up on the mat. And on the feet, she does stand a chance, but it's just, you know, and Amanda's not someone I'm overly confident in relying on going for takedowns, so she could end up making the fight closer than it potentially could be. So she's the minus 280 favourite. She has come down. I did see her up at, I think she was up minus 350. So it's an interesting fight. I kind of like this fight to go the distance, which is sitting at plus 230. But my concern there is, again, if Amanda takes her down, the fight's probably going to get finished. So it just makes me hesitant to bet that. So for me, it's a live bet fight. I'm not particularly keen on taking either side here based on the current odds. I don't trust Amanda to come out and wrestle, and as I've said, if it's standing, I can see it being a competitive, close fight. And then obviously the dog is live, but that is again reliant on Amanda not coming out for the takedowns, where I think she can probably wrap this up pretty quickly. Germaine doesn't train full time either. I believe she's a police officer, so you've got that to factor in as well. She's 35 years of age. She hasn't fought much since they last fought, albeit, you know, she's looked decent in her recent fights. But I'm going to go with Amanda to retain her belt. Next, we've got the men's featherweight title on the line. We've got Max Holloway taking on Alexander the Great Volkanovski. This is a tough fight to decide on. Volkanovski, the ex-rugby player, used to walk around I think about like 210 pounds, now down at 145 pounds. He's got a 2-inch reach advantage over Max, even though he's the guy that's 5 inches shorter. He's 5'6", Max 5'11". Just to bring up on the reach though, although he has got the longer reach, he doesn't in theory have the longer arms here. Reach is based from your wingspan basically, so it includes your back. Max has got the thinner back here, so you'll probably see that in terms of arm length, it's probably not much in it at all. But yeah, Volkanovski does definitely have long arms considering his height. In terms of strikes landed per minute, Max is up at just under 7, which is pretty crazy. Alexander is over 6 himself. Strikes absorbed, Max is up at over 4, which is pretty high. Volkanovski's at 2.5, but you've got to bear in mind the competition and levels that Max has been fighting at compared to Volkanovski. Takedowns, Holloway's not going to go for takedowns. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. Volkanovski's up at just under 3 takedowns per 15 minutes, 38% takedown accuracy. Max Holloway takedown defense, it's at 84%. Now, I don't see this fight hitting the mat. I mean, Volkanovski might nick a takedown, but Holloway will be straight up to his feet. So it's going to be a stand-up fight. I'm very confident of that. Very interesting fight. you've got Max coming back from his victory over Frankie Edgar. It wasn't the best performance in the world there from Max. I mean, look, he won the decision. It was comfortable enough. But Frankie did have some success in that fight. But Frankie's got good stand-up. He's got good footwork. But he did land some shots on Max. And we've got to remember, Max was coming off of that brutal fight with Dustin Poirier, where he took a lot of damage. I don't think there's any way a fight like that doesn't take something out of you. Fight before that, he had the Brian Ortega fight where he looked really good. He had a little bit of a funny spell in round 3 where Ortega started to have some success, kind of stunned him. Poirier stunned him multiple times. Max didn't go down though. The guy's so tough, but you've got to think that there's definitely something being taken out of him from these tough fights. And then before that, he had the 2 wins over José Aldo, where he stopped him with his pace and pressure in round 3, just broke Aldo. Brian Ortega, he was just a step above in the stand-up, just ended up teeing off on him. Ortega's face was a mess. And Poirier, he couldn't. Poirier was just too big for him. I mean, Poirier looks more like a welterweight now. He's extremely thick. But yeah, he couldn't deal with the power that was coming back from Poirier. You could see there was just such a big power difference there. Max isn't a big puncher. He's a volume guy. Overwhelms you with volume and his pace and his incredible cardio. But Poirier just the shots that were coming back were hurting Max, which we're not used to seeing. And what Max isn't used to, because he has always fought at 145. But moving up to 155 against one of the hardest hitters, you saw why there are weight divisions. And then he came back against Frankie Edgar. Quite a cautious fight really from Max. I mean, I don't know if maybe I'm discrediting Frankie's footwork, but he just couldn't really kind of trap him and overwhelm him like he normally does. There was a couple of situations where he managed to do so, but he took home a fairly comfortable decision victory. Volkanovski, I'm very conscious as a bettor that he's someone that I do underestimate, so I'm very wary betting against him. I think the only time I've bet on him in his UFC career was his debut. I don't think I've bet on him since. I've not bet against him, but I've not bet on him since. So that tells me my read on him isn't the best if I'm not betting him when he's fighting the likes of Jeremy Kennedy. If I remember right, I think the line was maybe minus 250 or so, and then Darren Elkins was possibly similar. But I mean, he's worked his way up. He had a decent run to begin with, the likes of Kasuya, Hirota, Young, Kennedy, Elkins, kind of tests you need to be passing if you want to move into the upper echelon of the division, and he passed them all with flying colours. He took on Chad Mendes, who was returning. Tough first round. He got dropped by Chad Mendes, he had his back taken, but his pressure just wore Chad. He just wore on him, just kept coming forward, showed really good get-ups. Chad would get a takedown, he'd get back to his feet, just kept pushing forward. And then took a different approach against José Aldo, wasn't using the forward pressure so much. At kickboxed José Aldo at range and mixed in his takedown game, because Aldo is just impossible to take down, but used a lot of clinching against the fence. Aldo didn't really have an answer for that. He was getting pinned against the fence for long periods, and that multiplied with the work that Volkanovski was doing at range was enough for him to take home a unanimous decision in Brazil, which is no small feat. So he's coming in here taking on Max. As I said earlier, it's going to be a stand-up fight. This is going to be a case of whether Volkanovski can live with Max's pace over 5 rounds. Max has got to put on a high pace here. I want to see a bit more urgency out of him as opposed to the Edgar fight. I think he really needs to try and push Volkanovski here, but he's got to be respectful of Volkanovski's power. Haven't really seen it in the UFC standing. I mean, he put Chad Mendes away. He dropped Darren Elkins a couple of times in round 1, and he got the ground and pound victory over Kasuya and Kennedy. But, well, I say we haven't seen it. I guess we have a couple of ground and pound victories, and then the knockdowns of Elkins, who somehow managed to survive round 1, and then he put away Chad Mendes. So he has got power, but I mean, it's not on the Dustin Poirier level. But Max does need to respect him, because that chin is being chipped away at, and it's going to get to a point where it does fail him, because as good a boxer as Max is, as good as a volume he puts out, as good as a pace he puts out, he is hittable, and at some point that's going to be his undoing. Whether that's here, I'd be quite surprised if he gets put away by Volkanovski from a big shot, but he's definitely got to respect that power. Volkanovski has got very long reach. He wouldn't have faced anyone with that kind of reach in the featherweight division, so that's something that Max is going to have to get used to as well. He's going to have to try and fight long here, I think. Against Edgar, I just found him, I don't know if he was just disrespecting Edgar's power, but he was kind of quite close to him all the time. Didn't really fight long in that particular fight, but I imagine here he will be trying to fight longer because he doesn't want to risk eating one of the power shots from Volkanovski. The wrestling, I don't think Max would be overly worried about it. I think, as I said, if he does get taken down, he'd pop straight back up. I think this is going to be a fight on the feet, and it's whether can Max overwhelm him. It's going to be very interesting to see how the first couple of rounds go out. Is it going to be a cagey affair? Are we going to see spurts of Max putting the pressure on, trying to wear Volkanovski down? I don't know, but it's a fight that I'm probably anticipating is going to actually go the distance. I can definitely see this going 5 rounds, and I can see it being a competitive fight. I fully understand arguments from both sides. I get where the Volkanovski backers are coming from. Is Max being disrespected? You know, we got that good price on him against Ortega. He was juiced against Edgar. You tend to get decent prices on Max, to be honest, at the books. I haven't got the odds in front of me, but I just remember I bet him against Anthony Pettis, and I got about -160. I can't remember the price in the Aldo fights, but I think he was the underdog in fight 1 and fight 2. I did bet him in fight 2, and again I think he was like the -160 kind of area. Brian Ortega, he was a good price against. Big favourite against Dustin Poirier, and obviously he lost. And then Edgar, he was a sizable favourite against. But again here he's in at -170, which, it's a solid price for betting on Max Holloway. I can't fault anyone that is putting the trigger on Max here. I don't fault anyone having a go at Volkanovski, but I wouldn't go big on Volkanovski. I have seen people arguing that Volkanovski's beaten a broken Aldo and a retiring Mendes, which, possibly true. Obviously Mendes has retired, have broken his Aldo. I don't know. Was Volkanovski, or is Volkanovski just being disrespected and he just shut Aldo down? I don't know is the honest answer. I don't know. Like I said earlier, I do underestimate Volkanovski when I break down his fight, so it's what's giving me pause here in kind of betting against him. Is there something I'm not seeing? But make no mistake about it, this is a big step up for him. We saw Max put away Aldo twice, so this is definitely a step up. I've got to go with Max retaining his belt here, but I do think it'll be a competitive fight. It will answer hopefully a lot of questions for me on Volkanovski and help me get a better read on him, but I think Max wins a decision here. But are we going to look back and think, wow, that was a great price we got there on Max Holloway, -170? I don't know. I think it's going to be competitive. I don't think Max is going to run away with this. I think Alexander is very well trained. I think he's an intelligent guy. I think he's going to come in with a set game plan and he's going to apply it. But Max's pace, pressure, volume, as long as he's firing on all cylinders in that respect, I think it's going to be too much for Volkanovski in the end. So I'm going to go in Max Holloway to win a decision here. Right, let's move to the main event. Fight I'm most looking forward to on this card. We've got Kamaru Usman taking on Colby Covington. Let's have a quick look at the stats here for this welterweight title fight. Usman's 15-1, Colby 15-1 as well. Both seem to high. Well, Usman's 6 foot, Colby's listed as 5'11". Usman's got a 4-inch reach advantage. He will switch his stance, albeit I think he fights predominantly orthodox. They're a similar age. Usman's slightly older. Strikes landed per minute. Surprisingly, Usman's actually higher. He's up at just over 4. Colby's just below 4, but I guess we haven't really seen Colby's volume attack on the feet prior to the Robbie Lawler fight. That's when it kind of really garnered everyone's attention. Strikes result per minute, Usman pretty low at 1.6, Colby's at 2.3. And then the wrestling stats, so Usman averages 4 takedowns per 15 minutes, Colby averages just under 6. Takedown accuracy, both 50%. Takedown defense, Usman 100%, Colby 78%. So, little going over the stats there. This is a really, really intriguing fight. So, I mean, we all know Colby Covington and his heel turn. He was going to get kicked out of the UFC before he fought, or after the Maya fight. So he just basically created this character that everyone hates. You know, it's. I mean, people are saying he doesn't sell pay-per-views, etc. And yeah, he doesn't. He's not that kind of fighter. You know, you can be a great trash talker, shit talker, but you're not really going to shift pay-per-views unless you're one of these people that's going out there and putting people to sleep. That's just what sells to the general public. Colby Covington isn't that style of fighter. I think to appreciate what he does in the octagon, you've kind of got to be a bit of a purist, and I'm a big fan of Colby. I have been since he first entered the UFC. He's been a cash cow for me as well. I remember betting him in his UFC debut. Against, it was a Asian fighter. Let's have a look at his record. Wang. I can't remember what price I got. I mean, he was quite a big favourite. I think he was like maybe minus 300. But I thought it was free money at the time, and he absolutely. I don't think I've watched it since, but I just remember he absolutely demolished him. And yeah, he's been on a great run. He lost to Warlley Alves back in December 2015, got guillotined pretty quickly in that fight, and since then he's reeled off win over win. I mean, I remember betting him against. I bet him in his debut. I bet him against Max Griffin. I bet him against Brian Barberina. I bet him against Stungun. Actually, don't think I've bet him since though. In the Lawler fight, I had. Fight goes to a decision. I didn't bet him outright there, but yeah, I mean, the guy just sets a relentless pace. He's at American Top Team. As I said, he's created this character that's it's created quite a lot of friction at American Top Team, including an apparent falling out with his ex-best friend Jorge Masvidal. Don't know if I buy it myself. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a big setup. Jorge Masvidal knows what he's doing. He comes across as a guy that's, ethically he wouldn't do stuff like that, but he knows how to try and sell fights. He's kind of, he's done this whole resurrection thing. He's got himself into into everyone's talking category with regards to big fights, and I mean, he has done it through his actual actions in the ring with the knockout of Teal, the flying knee of Askren, and the bad motherfucker belt. So I mean, he has done it all for his fighting. But when you watch his interviews and that, and the kind of persona he's set up with the resurrection and everything, he knows how to try and build stuff as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're in an agreement here. Colby doesn't mind being bad-mouthed, being called a traitor and stuff like that, so I honestly don't think there's a genuine falling out here. I think they're both in on it together, but he's ruffled a lot of feathers. He's got very personal as well with the I can't remember what they're called now, with Henry Hoof's gym. Was the Black Zidians, now they've changed the name, but yeah, there was a lot of stuff said about the owner that died. I can't remember his name now, but he's actually kind of got personal and brought it up. I thought that was in bad taste. I mean, I get he's trying to sell the fight and everything, but there wasn't really any need to bring that up. I know his daughters have come out as well and asked him not to say anything further, so hopefully he doesn't, and he kind of listens to what they've said, because I just think there was no need to really go that low. But he's trying to get in Usman's head. Has he? I don't know. I watched a press conference they done, what was it, about a month ago now. Usman seemed pretty chilled there, to be honest. He didn't, even when he did make a remark about Glenn, he kind of just took it like water off a duck's back. So I don't know if it's had the intended result, but we'll see what happens this week. This week will be telling, because Colby's going to be trying all the tricks, try and get in his head. But if we break down the actual fight itself. So we saw last time Colby against Robbie Lawler, he put out excellent volume on the feet with his punches. His stand-up's been a work in progress. It's steadily been improving. He's got zero power though. That's not great. He can pump out incredible volume, but he's got no power. And the problem I've got as well, I don't know where Robbie Lawler's at. What kind of version of Robbie Lawler was that? It's definitely not a prime Robbie Lawler. It's definitely a Robbie Lawler on the decline. Robbie just had no answer for the volume. He just kind of took it. You could see he was worried about the takedown as well, so that made him even more hesitant. So he was getting that struck with just pure volume. He took a lot of punches, but like I said, Colby he's got no power. You can see he's improving technically, because you watch the Damian Maia fight and he's overextending on his right hand. He's kind of falling over his feet. He has clearly been working on his stand-up, but I mean, it's still not great. He's just got that really high volume that's just really frustrating to deal with, because he's just constantly peppering you with shots. And then of course he's got that Division 1, I think he's an All-American as well, wrestling background, where he can he just bullies people against the fence. People can't deal with him on the fence, and he can keep doing it. Most people can't maintain that kind of pace where they're just wrestling you, clinching you against the fence, constantly working for takedowns just over and over for 25 minutes. And he can do it. He's just one of these freak athletes with freak cardio. He done it to Rafael dos Anjos, and he done it to Robbie Lawler. Although with Robbie Lawler, he actually kind of struck with him in the last couple of rounds. I remember the first round against RDA, I was like, oh, he's not going to be able to keep that pace going. But he did. I mean, it round 4, maybe he took round 4 off a little bit, and you did to see him taking some deep breaths, but he came back strong round 5. And I remember Robbie Lawler fight as well, because I was on the goes the distance. I started to get a little bit worried when he stopped going for the takedowns so much. He started to strike more. I was thinking he's getting tired, but I think that was maybe just because he was content striking with Robbie. Robbie wasn't offering anything back. When you've got money on something, it always affects your thinking process, and you don't think so rational as maybe you would if you haven't got money on it. So when I re-watched it, I just think he was just content striking with him. So I mean, I think it's going to be a typical game plan for Colby here. I think he's just going to try and do what he normally does. He's just going to try and pump volume on Usman on the feet, and he's going to try and grind him against the fence. The key for me for this fight is, can Colby maintain the front foot? Can he be the aggressor here? Because that's what he's done in all his fights pretty much. We have seen him push back though. He hasn't always been on the front foot. I'm sure it was a Robbie Lawler fight. It wasn't much, but there was some parts where he was the one that was backing up, and also against RDA. We've also seen in the clinch. He's a very good clinch wrestler, but people can escape that clinch. He's not as physically strong as Usman. You can escape that clinch. You can get out of it, whereas with Usman, if he puts you against that fence, it's incredibly difficult to get off. The guy just can hold you there. Really, really difficult to move him. Whereas Colby's not quite as efficient. He's not quite as physically strong. So Colby needs to be the one moving forward, because that's how his striking works as well. I can't envisage Colby being very good on the back foot with his striking. He's not well trained as a striker in that regard. It's very difficult to be able to do both. He's going to struggle if he's pushed back. His striking is going to become completely irrelevant, and that kind of high volume pressure style he's got only works on the front foot. I've got to imagine that on the back foot he's going to be pretty useless. So we move on to Usman. I mean, they're similar fighters. Usman doesn't pump out the kind of volume that Colby does. Usman's volume, as I said at the start, four strikes landed per minute, significant strikes. Some of that might be skewed by ground and pound, but he's got less volume. Usman, though, I haven't seen him take a backward step. The guy's constantly on the front foot, and I don't know if Colby is the man to push him back. I just don't think he's got enough power to do it in his punches. I don't see why Usman is going to back off. Now, Usman isn't a finisher, neither is Colby, but Usman's got some pop in his punches. I mean, he's only got the one finish in the UFC. He took out Sergio Morales, just one punched him, but you know, we've seen him, he done some damage to Sean Strickland standing, he cut him up. We saw him drop Damian Maia, who I know Maia hasn't got very good stand-up at all, but Damian Maia's as tough as they come. He's been stopped once in his whole career against Nate Marquardt up at middleweight, and that still seems a bit of a weird knockout. He dropped Damian Maia, and he had Tyron Woodley hurt as well when he unleashed on him against the fence. So make no bones about it, he's got these long, loopy like levers and punches that he throws, and if they connect, they're going to hurt you. I think they will get Colby's respect if he can land something, especially if he does it early. So volume advantage on the feet goes to Colby, but Usman, for me, is the more powerful striker, and I think his shots will be more eye-catching to the judges unless he's getting massively out-volumed. But then this comes back to, as I said earlier, I just can't see Colby striking being effective on the back foot, and for me, I see Usman being the man on the front foot in this fight. I can't see Colby bullying him and pushing him back. Usman's a bigger, physically stronger guy, hits harder. I think he's the one that's going to be generally dictating who's on the front foot. Colby is going to shoot on him, so there's going to be points where he's going to push him back to the fence and be trying to wrestle him. But as I said, I haven't seen Usman pushed back in a fight, so I don't expect to see that happen here either. I think he's going to be the one pushing forward. In terms of clinching, as I mentioned earlier, he's incredibly strong in the clinch. You can't turn him. Now, I haven't seen anyone turn Colby either, for that matter, and put Colby's shoulders on the fence. But Usman just, I think Woodley did early, and maybe RDA very early, and managed to escape his clinch. But otherwise, once he's warmed up and you've kind of worn down a little bit, you're stuck there on that fence. He's got decent takedowns. We've seen Colby taken down a few times. Stun gun managed to get him down, and so did RDA. RDA hit a couple of double legs, albeit Colby did show good scrambling to get back to his feet. So I don't expect Usman to be able to hold Colby down unless Colby starts to get tired as the fight wears on. We saw that against RDA. RDA couldn't really keep RDA down early, but the last couple of rounds just took him down and kept him down. RDA couldn't get back up. We didn't see Colby have that kind of success. He couldn't keep RDA on the floor. So I think in terms of, I do favour Usman's MMA wrestling here, going off what we've seen. I think he's got the better takedowns, he's got the better top control. I think he's physically stronger, and we have seen Colby taken down. RDA, as I said, he hit a couple of double legs. RDA did try a takedown on Usman, and he got shut down pretty harshly, and I think he ended up on his back in actual fact when Usman defended it. So I think physicality is going to play a big mark here. Usman's the bigger man, the physically stronger man. It's going to be the stronger man in the clinch. I don't like playing MMA maths, but when you look at the RDA fight, which I think you have to when you're trying to compare these two, I mean, Usman, for me, it was a pretty dominant 50-45. Now, when I watched the Colby RDA fight live, I had it 2-2 going into round 5, and when I capped it for this, it's very hard for me to judge a fight when I'm capping, because I'm not really looking at RDA particularly. I'm just looking at Colby, so it is hard for me to judge a fight. But it did seem like it was probably a 4-1 for Colby. But I'd need to rewatch to judge it properly. But I remember at the time I definitely had it 2-all. But I do feel that Usman's victory was definitely more dominant than Colby's. He's coming off that dominant display over Tyron Woodley. I mean, just shut him down completely for 5 rounds. Woodley just has got nothing going whatsoever. The Damian Maia fight, Colby was happy being a bit more reckless in that Damian Maia fight, but I mean, in retrospect, it turns out he was fighting for his job, so I think he went in there and thought, I'm just going to throw down, trust my takedown defence, and just try and make it as entertaining as possible, and then obviously drop all the other trash talk that he did. So I think he went in with that. He was like fighting for his job. Usman, it was more of a workmanlike performance against Maia. His fight with Maia was over 5 rounds as opposed to Colby's, which was over 3. But I mean, Damian Maia got nothing going in that fight at all. I mean, you can say that it wasn't the best performance in the world, but it was still a dominant victory. He was obviously just cautious. He didn't want to get taken down. He came close to being taken down in round 1. He held a really tight whizzer for a minute or so, and the referee inexplicably separated them. I don't know what the ref was thinking. Shouldn't have split him in that position. So it would have been interesting to see, because that's the one thing we haven't seen. We have seen Colby scramble up from the bottom. We haven't seen Usman put on the bottom. Is he going to be able to scramble like Colby? If Colby takes him down, imagine Usman does get stuck on the bottom and can't get up. I'd be surprised, because Colby's not really he's not very heavy on the top position. But it's something we haven't seen, so it's going to be interesting. And no one's really tested Usman's takedown defence, except for, as I said, RDA did have a go and he got shut down. So it is a very intriguing fight. I'm really looking forward to it. I'll see it going the distance, but prices reflect that. Usman's come down a little bit. He's currently sitting at -175. I'd like it a little bit cheaper, but I'm going to be picking Usman here. I honestly have no idea how this line's going to move over the next 5 days, 4 days. Normally I feel I've got a good feel for how the line movement's going to be, but here I just don't know. It's held at this price for a while now, but there is going to be money coming in. It's a big event. Last pay-per-view of the year. There's going to be some line movement, I'm sure. I just don't know what way. I don't think Usman should be above -200. So I wonder if we get some Colby money coming in. It's coming a little bit where he's at -175 as opposed to the -190 where he was sitting for a while. So I'm really intrigued to see what way that line moves. But I'm going to go with Usman to defend his title here and win a decision. But I think it will be a competitive fight. I don't expect a shutout either way. I can definitely see it being a kind of 48-47 type fight, and kind of a split decision even wouldn't shock me, because if there is a lot of wrestling exchanges, it's going to come down to how the judges are interpreting it, and it's going to be one of them where you probably can interpret it numerous different ways. The one reservation I have on Usman is I know his cardios look great, but just if Colby is having some success with the wrestling, Usman's just shut everyone down. You kind of look at his fights, he's not really had any adversity. RDA shut him out, Tyrone Woodley shut him out, Damian Maia, Emil Meek. Do you know what I mean? He's that good. He's just shut everyone down. He's literally not faced any adversity in the UFC, which is pretty crazy. So, when he isn't being the hammer, and maybe he has to be the now, and when I say the now against Colby, I don't mean he's going to be getting hammered on. I mean just he's having to defend takedowns if he does get his back put on the fence, if he does have to get taken down and have to work back up. That's a different kind of cardio that you're relying on then, because someone like him who hasn't been in that position, you've got to really learn to relax and not get all tense and end up expending energy you don't need to, and end up gassing out, because he is the more muscular, bigger guy here. So there is always that threat, and we just haven't seen Usman deal with that. And this is MMA. There's going to be a point where you're going to have to deal with adversity. You're not just going to be able to go through your whole career just dishing it out. So that is a little bit of a reservation I've got. I definitely can't fault anyone on Colby here. Before tape I thought I was going to be on Colby, but my recollection of Usman was pretty poor, and I came away just just extremely impressed. The guy's a beast, but so is Colby. This is a great fight, but I'm gonna go with Usman to win a decision, but it's going to be competitive, and I would, I'd like to see Usman around -150. I think. Whether it goes there or not, I don't know, but I think it'd be absolutely nuts if Usman gets bet up to -200 or wider. So interesting fight. Really looking forward to it. Good luck with your bets, everyone. I don't think this is a easy card for betting at all, so I hope you all can make some money. As I said, the live betting service will be in action 3 times this weekend. We've got Boxing Friday, Boxing Saturday, and the UFC immediately follows the boxing live betting. ProMMABetting.com to see the membership packages. £195 for 12 months, guys, and £100 per unit bettors in 2019 of 13,800 in profit. silly return on investment. So if you're looking for some help with your bets, with your live bets, jump on board the service, guys. We've got a great team in Discord. Everyone helps each other with streams and things like that. So jump on board if you want some help with your betting. Have some fun throughout the night. Join the team. But everyone, good luck, and I'll be back next week for the final card of the year over in Korea.